Friends, I'm so glad that all of you have come out today, and we're really, really appreciative of the time that you're taking. We recognize that there's so much else going on in your lives, but we hope that the future of Asbury First is at least something that's worth coming out for and talking through and thinking about. Certainly, we've been doing that together as a congregation. We've been doing that as a dream team, and so we're honored to do that together with the whole congregation right now. We have started every Dream Team strategic planning conversation with the same hymn, and it's sitting on every other chair. I wanted to say pew, but that's not quite the case. Sitting on every other chair, be thou my vision. So I wondered, we might all start by singing that together in the prayer that it might be true. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to be save that thou art. Thou my best hope, by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. Every idea has to have a name at some point. And for the last 2 years, we as a congregation have been dreaming. Started with a series of sermons on dreaming, and then, as we'll get to in just a moment, a dream board that the entire congregation spent about 6 months putting dreams on. But we were thinking, why do we dream right now? And the truth is, we stand at a pretty unique moment in time. If you look at where we are as a church, we are facing our bicentennial in 2020. That's in 3 years, for those counting, or 2.5, I suppose, at this point, depending on the way we count these things. It's a time when we might be really reflective upon the fact that we've come 200 years together as a church, as a congregation. That's pretty remarkable. But also, it's a moment to start thinking about the next 200 years and laying the foundation for what we hope will come up in those next 200 years. So we thought, for a moment, we would just pause to reflect on who we are right now. This is a quick snapshot. You'll see that there's a report on your chairs, and we hope that each one of you has received one. It's our best efforts to try and describe what has been happening within the life of this congregation, what we've heard from you, what has come out of reflections as we've gone out and spoken about this. It's our best effort in trying to describe who God is calling us to be. So recognizing that, let's just think for a moment about who we are right now as a congregation. We're worship attendants. We have about 700 in worship on an average Sunday. Our membership, this was this morning, was at 2,326. That's about 1,290 family units. Our endowment is somewhere around $8 million. As you know, markets go up and down as those things go. We have about 38 employees as a church. That includes 3 ministers, 13 full-time persons, and 25 part-time persons. Some are very, very part-time, and some are like half-time or three-quarters time, but we wanted to give you a sense of that. Because this comes up quite a bit, we're thinking about our accessibility. This is one of the concerns that come out of the Ministry and Space Task Force. So we know that this building is fully accessible. And other buildings, 1010 and 1050, are not. So we just want to name that up front to give you a quick snapshot of where we are. Okay, so if we back out, we're going to talk through a lot over the course of this presentation. We hope to not bore you. You should note that on the very front of your packet are the list of people who've been a part of the Dream Team. Not all of them could be here today, but we tried our very best to get representative persons from around the congregation. It was a really good team who had differences of opinion and found our way together. And I think that's the report is stronger for it. And we were able, and I think you'll be able to sense some of where we found our way within this. But if we're going to start, we should start with the dreams, because that's how all of this came about. So you remember that in a series of sermons, we talked about dreams. This was in 2015, fall of 2015. At the same time, we placed the giant dream board in front of the church. or in the Gallery Center, and people over the course of the next 6 months shared their dreams. We estimated that we got over 400 dreams in that. We took them all, none was too silly. We put every dream onto a note card at the end of those 6 months, and we placed them on a board that we'll call the Affinity Board. In 1 second, I'll share that. At the same time, we had town hall meetings in which we asked 5 questions of the congregation that you'll see listed on page 4 of your packet. You were able to see what it was that we were asking the congregation. What are we best known for? What does Asbury do better than most? What are our growing edges? What are the most important things we do? And if you picked up a newspaper in 10 years, and we still have newspapers, what would you hope it said about Asbury First? So from that, we took all of those and we put them all onto an affinity board. Everything that we heard from various groups and entities within the congregation, from the town hall meetings, from the small groups, we put them on the board and we asked people to place them next to the dreams that were alike. To find it's an affinity board so that you're able to put like dreams alike. We estimated that we had over 10,000 moves over the course of those couple of weeks as we found themes, as we heard from the congregation about who we are. We had those town hall and listening sessions, and what we really discovered out of all of that data were some themes that people care about at Asbury First. And really, I would name those as 4 themes: outreach, connection, inclusion, and growth. So in some of these areas, we were celebrating, and some we were saying we need to do a little more work on this. And we're going to let members of the congregation here share, members of the team here share a little bit about what we heard. Paula?
Outreach was by far the one that came up most often. And reading through the dreams, the conversations, it appeared to be that everybody liked what we were doing, but they wanted to do more. Wanted to go deeper, to not just feed, clothe, and heal, but also to figure out why those things were happening and why we had to do that, and ways to extend ourselves beyond mercy or compassion to get to the justice part of our faith. Fortunately for us as a dream team, the outreach task force was working simultaneously as we were. And they have put together a wonderful path of way forward in their documentations, and it has been approved by Church Council, and we heartily accepted their work as well.
Connection. So many of us feel connected in many different ways here at Asbury. Some of us feel a connection through the worship service. We feel connected through the music, the preaching, and also just the tradition of the service. But we also feel great connections outside of worship, and we really celebrate the adult Sunday school classes. Some of them have been meeting for over 60 years, and that is really something to celebrate. And we also celebrate the children and the youth ministries. But many of us are looking for deeper connections in different ways, and we're looking for those regardless of our age or circumstance.
In the area of inclusion, our community dreamers felt that inclusion should be celebrated, and it should be emphasized that all are welcome here. This dream is evident in our reconciliation statement, in our bulletin every week, which provides that we extend hospitality to all and encourage the full participation of all, regardless of any defining characteristic. In particular, in the area of inclusion, we noted a desire to maintain our inclusive stance to the LGBTQI community. We noted a lack in racial and ethnic diversity, a desire for our community and our staff to reflect the diversity of our greater Rochester community. And it was also noted, as Stephen mentioned, that 2 of our campus buildings remain ADA inaccessible.
So your voices were clear as you wrote your dreams on those note cards and spoke up in town halls. And as you move those cards around the affinity board, you told us that growth needed to be an important part of our future. We are generally happy with the current state of Asbury First, but we wanted to share it with more people. And so growing the congregation is a very important part of this strategy. Today was a day to celebrate with 3 baptisms and 11 new members, 7 confirmands, so it's a day to celebrate growth. But it's not just growth of the congregation. Your dream board input also indicated a desire to grow in our relationship with each other, to grow in our faith, to grow in our discipleship, and to grow in the good work we do in all of our outreach efforts. So clearly, growth is a very important part of this strategy.
Okay, so we took all of those dreams. We recognized the themes that had come out of them and exactly who we were and who we longed to be, and then began the real work of the dream team. We came together, so a year had been spent in the congregation sharing these dreams, moving these around, recognizing these themes, and then the dream team got together and began thinking about all of it, trying to reflect and to understand who we were and make sense of our mission as a church. And I want to be clear, we have a good mission statement as a church, but it's hard to remember. And I don't know if anybody here could state it on their own, just off the top of their head. We might get the important parts, but what we felt was that while it covered some of the bases, what it was missing is a genuine sense of who we were now and who that dream board was reflecting us to be. And so we started to reflect together about who we are called to be as a congregation based upon what we heard shared. We kept coming back to this passage. Jesus said, "I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." And then we thought, just as the Christian faith is about bringing life to the world, Asbury First is about bringing life to this community. We believe the only way to the fullness of life promised by Jesus Christ is through love. Love of God and love of neighbor. Through love we find life. In a love-filled life we are led to serve others. Through service to others we find love fully expressed. This cycle is the heart of discipleship, and as such we believe it is the key to living into God's dream for this community. Thus, our mission at Asbury First is to love God and neighbor, to live fully, to serve all, and then do it all again. Or said simply, love, live, serve, repeat. So for us, we said our mission statement should be love God and neighbor, live fully, serve all, repeat. That is what we are called to do. And put in a soundbite form, love, live, serve, repeat. Once we had our mission, we could begin to think more fully about who we are and about what we value.
Okay, so if you are tracking at this point, and I pray that you are, how about everybody gives me a wave who's still tracking with us? Okay, those that have not waved, let's get some coffee. Values. Stephen so beautifully articulated our process of how we determined who we are and what we are trying to accomplish, which is the mission. And then the logical next step is to identify what are our values, what are the stakes in the ground, what are the things that we're going to say, these are the things that are important to us, they're going to be our guiding principles, they're going to inform our behavior and our culture here at Asbury First. We had 4 values as a church, and we are proposing that we move to 7 values, and Al's going to help me share them today. So the first value is being open to all. We believe we are all equal in God's eyes and are one with Christ. We extend hospitality and encourage full participation for all, regardless of any perceived defining characteristic.
Next value is worship. We believe we are at our best when we connect to God together through preaching, prayer, and song. We strive for excellence in all we do, especially in our worship experience.
Community. We believe we are better together. Fellowship and care are keys to love and life.
Outreach. We believe everyone deserves hope and fullness of life. We endeavor to practice mercy and work for justice in our local and extended community.
Discipleship. We believe we, adults, youth, and children alike, are called to grow in our faith, both as a community and individuals, through education, regular worship, meaningful fellowship, a commitment to service, and celebrating rites of passage together.
Generosity. We believe what we have is a gift from God. We share our gifts with an open heart to help meet needs at Asbury First, the Rochester community, and throughout the world.
And our last value, stewardship. We believe we must care for the human, physical, and financial resources with which we have been entrusted.
Hopefully that's starting to sound like who we are. It was certainly reflective of what we saw.
So vision. What's a vision? Used in a lot of ways. I think it's a Ford Motor Company in Rochester. Not that we're not talking about Our Lady of Fatima or any other vision word. It basically answers the question, where do we go from here? There's an old saying, many of you may remember, if you don't know where you're going, all roads lead there. So it's very important that we know where we're going, and know that we can find a specific path to make it happen. So what did we learn from the Dream Team input? It was, as you've heard, predominantly positive. We heard a need for progress in the 4 areas that were mentioned. We did not hear that we needed to make a left turn at the stop sign. We didn't hear that it was time to throw programs overboard because they just weren't working and starting down a whole new path that was different from what we're doing. What we really heard was captured, we thought, in the Wesleyan rule of life. So I'm going to read that to you. Do all the good you can by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, and all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you ever can. So that led us to our vision. As we reflected on all the input we had seen in the process that led to this, in our own deep thinking and prayer, we felt that our vision, which would build upon all the good work we're doing, it would deepen our life together, have a greater impact on our community, also had a Wesleyan ring to it. And that vision would be, very simply, do more good. So what we're proposing today is that our vision statement be do more good.
So then we had to make sure that we were on the right track. So once we took the mission, had the new mission in mind, once we had the values articulated, once we were able to to articulate also a vision to do more good, we were able to ask ourselves, okay, so if that's the case, what do we do? So we went back to the dream board with all of that in mind. Both the dream board provided the context on which we could build the mission, the values, and the vision, but then it also provided the lens by which we could understand what we should do as a result of those longings and dreams in a congregation. And so, we've attempted to provide some goals. Each goal has a number. Each goal has a title. Each goal has a concise description of the desired state and an assignment of responsibility. I want to just note something right here. An asterisk indicates a new resource that may be required. And it may be we didn't put enough asterisks, and it may be that we put too many. But what we tried to do was say, okay, look, we're going to do this right. We're going to do this well. We're going to need a human, a fiscal, or a structural resource shift. So it doesn't always mean financial, but it might mean we need to shift some people around, or it means we might need to change the structure to make this happen. So that's why we put an asterisk after it, and you'd be welcome to offer us feedback about if it's too much or too little. Also, here's the important note. I said it before, but let me say it again. Each goal is listed as a desired future state, as if we've already done more good in that area. Okay? So each one's listed as if we've completed it. So we know, how do we know we've achieved that goal? It's when that statement becomes true. Okay? And because the values we discovered were so foundational to us, we thought we would build upon that foundation as we stated these goals, because it's the way that the dreams worked out. It's a way that we knew that we were on the right track with our values, because the dreams were reflected upon it. So each value receives goals.
So isn't it good that when we ended up with 17 goals, that we had multiple goals for each of the 7 values? So that said, we were covering all the very important foundational areas of the church. The first one was open to all. I'm sure you can all recite the value that we shared with you on open to all. And we had 3 goals within that value: accessibility, diversity, and hospitality. In terms of accessibility, Stephen's already made the point that in 10 and 1050 have significant accessibility issues. We need to fix those so that all our buildings are fully accessible to those with physical needs. You note the responsibility there is for the trustees. There's an asterisk because elevators and ramps cost money and are quite expensive. Second one is diversity. There, our church in word practice and worship is reflective of a diverse set of cultures and perspectives and reflect our greater Rochester community. We've noted there another asterisk, not so much with money, but we noted there really wasn't a committee within the church infrastructure that could help us focus on this. So we added a committee that we just called New Task Force / Committee. That will take more of a lead role in this. If anyone is interested, if this gets approved and interested in being part of that committee, please let us know. And the third one was hospitality. All who enter Asbury First encounter a unique sense of warmth and welcome within our community.
Great. So you have all the goals listed. We're just going through them so you get a sense of it and you get a feel for where it came from for us. So worship. The first goal is in attendance. That is, our weekly worship attendance is at 1,000, an increase of approximately 50% from 2017. We're happy to do more than that. Technology is the second one, that our worship experience is faithfully expanded through digital media. We have many people who are tuning in on Sunday morning, and the numbers just keep growing. People from not just the Rochester community who goes away for a little bit, but people who are never been a part of our community in terms of living in Rochester are tuning in each Sunday on our worship, and so we want to expand that worship experience. So those are our 2 goals within worship.
Within the community, we have 3 goals. The first goal is connection. All who desire one have a place within the Asbury First community beyond worship. And here I'll note an asterisk for a new possible position of a volunteer coordinator. I and others heard from dreamers and members of our congregation that some felt when they had a desire to serve, they didn't know who to call. So we are considering whether it would be appropriate to have a person who can mesh folks who want to serve with the needs and opportunities that are available. Second is care. People within our Asbury First community receive the right care at the right time, in the right place. And third is communication. Information is communicated effectively to all audiences inside and outside our community. And there we note another asterisk with the possibility of formulating through existing or new resources the communication need to fulfill this goal.
So the next goal is outreach, and for those of you who might program computers, think of this as a branch to a whole separate program, because this is pointing to the good work that was done by the Outreach Task Force and the report that they prepared, a way forward. And so we felt that by just stating that the goal for outreach was to align or to fully implement or faithfully implement the work done by that task force and represented in their report, A Way Forward, and responsibilities, as you can see here, as articulated by Outreach, Church Council, Asbury, and Masters.
We have two goals under discipleship. Our first goal is faith development, and that includes a clear pathway for discipleship is available for all in our community. That includes children, youth, and adults. And then celebration. We grow our faith through all the celebrations of life's rites of passages together.
And then there's generosity. We all have heard of the way we say it is time, talent, and treasure. So for time, we've said all members of our community volunteer in some way, either within the church or within the community. And I'm going to name the responsible people, so it's not just each individual, but the leadership of the church and the volunteer coordinator that we talked about earlier, and technology. Lots of ways to get those going. Talent. All members of our community are able to use their talents and leadership abilities within our community to serve others. And again, that rests somewhat on the congregation because they have to let those in leadership know what they want to do. How do I move forward? How do I help? And the last one, of course, is treasure. And we're hoping that all members of our community will give financially, and maybe by this time in the future, we'll all be pledging, as we all know how important that is for the church. And that, of course, is in the hands of stewardship and planned giving.
Not quite that tall. And then the last goal, the last set of goals is around the value stewardship. And so our first goal for stewardship, 7.1, refers to our endowment. Our endowment is currently at $10 million, and that is speaking of the future state. Does anybody remember what the current state is? Yes, you're with us. 7.2, capital improvements. A 15-year revolving plan and process is in place to manage capital improvements, and the responsible party is the trustees. And then goal 7.3, structures and systems. Our structures and systems are organized in a missionally effective way. And the responsibility of that goal would be church council, leadership of the church, technology, and SPRC.
So you may recognize that some of those goals were simply stated, but are heavy in terms of execution. Right? There's a lot to some of these goals, and there were many, many things that we thought about, and even some that we see as other things that would slide underneath some of these goals. But we really tried to keep whittling down, to get at the gist, the essence of what it was that we longed for as a congregation, what it was that we heard people share with us. We did an initial draft of this report, and we went and we shared it with about 18 different committees and small groups. They went to share and just hear what people had to say, did we get this right? And they included the leadership groups, they included Sunday school classes, they included the groups that are going to have to take responsibility for each of these areas, in the hope that we might get buy-in, so that as our leader at the beginning, Kathy Ryan, would say, that this doesn't become lining for a hamster cage, right? We want this strategic plan to actually matter for the life of the church and for the kingdom of God. So that's our hope. So just want to talk for a moment about next steps. So we want to make sure that the responsible parties are identified. They've already been identified in here, but as we understand them, as the congregation shares with us, we may understand that a new responsible party is there, or somebody else may be responsible for that. So we want to make sure that they continue to be identified. We have already assigned action plans, and they're being developed. Some groups are pretty far down the road, and some groups have just started to think about it. There is a communications team, but they may need more resources to be able to, make sure that everybody knows what they need to know at the right time. That's a really big undertaking to be able to do it. Church council will take ownership of this plan. In other words, it's theirs. They are in charge of this plan. It will be implemented into all of the reports that come out at the end of the year. We will ask each group to reflect on how they are living into those goals, how they're bringing that strategy to life, how they're bringing those dreams to life. And we have now in David Strong, the church administrator, who's going to own from the staff perspective the execution of these goals and help provide the support and the structures to put around them. We've done a lot of work to help make sure that this doesn't fall flat, but that we actually do whatever we can to implement this, trusting in God's grace and recognizing that we may take some turns that were unexpected along the way, but trusting that there is a fingerprint in that we can point to. Okay, so for us, what are the next steps here? Well, one, we want to hear your questions, your ideas, how this has hit you. If it has not hit you well, if it has hit you really well, we would love to hear from you. We've created this email address, dreams@asburyfirst.org. It's a place where you can write and share what it is that you're thinking within these. We're also going to set up some town hall meetings. Remember that we're moving to the summer schedule starting next week. So start the 4th of June and the 18th of June. Those are both Sunday mornings. We're going to meet at 9 a.m. in here, and I'm going to have to leave it to the Dream team to be able to hear and reflect with you about what it was that you've heard in this report, the ideas that you might have had, certainly areas of betterment of the report itself. We're also going to do one of those on Wednesday, the 14th of June at 6:30 in the Gathering Center upstairs, so that we can reflect back and hear as a congregation how this has all landed. And then our hope is that we can get together on the 25th of June following the service and vote on whether or not this is who God is calling us to be. If that's the case, we will adopt in that moment that mission, that vision, those values, and begin to implement the goals that we have set before us. Friends, this is a lot of information to share with you in a little amount of time. We want to take about 10 minutes or so today to give you a chance to reflect, to respond, to let us know how this has hit you, if you affirm what it is we've said, if you have some questions about it. Undoubtedly, there are some questions out there, so please, we would love to hear from you. Before we do, I just want to say thank you to both the team members who are up here today, but also to all of those who committed over the course of this last year to come every other week to meet and talk and think and pray. And we hope that you can hear the care that we put into this and the love, because we really think this is a report of the community, for the community, and by the community. Thank you. Are there questions that you would like to raise today? Regine?
Excuse me, how will we know what the meat on these bones will be? Will those be reports from specific committees? Will those be other town hall meetings? These are great, but they're very general in certain respects, so they're going to really tell us what are you doing about disability accessibility.
Sure, you will hear from it in different ways for each of the goals. Her question was, how will we hear, how will we know the progress of these goals? How will we know what the actual action plans and implementation plans are? And I would say there are multiple ways to hear about that. It's going to be different for each goal. For instance, the trustees, as they have responsibility for the accessibility, you'll be hearing about that in the Ministry and Space Task Force as they do their reports. We've heard about many of those reports. We're going to hear the final reports in the next few weeks. Actually, after the vote, you'll hear another report on that, and then we'll be moving forward as you hear more about that in the fall. The church council will be communicating that. The annual reports will be communicating that. And then I would say if you have specific questions, concerns about how a goal is being implemented, because we know the responsible parties, we can go to those areas. Maybe you think this is something that's near and dear to my heart, I'd like to be a part of it, or at the very least offer some insight into it. And then we would welcome you into that committee. That's typically not the problem we have. We're kind of looking for people. So if you have ideas, insight that you want to offer, then you know the responsible parties to go and talk to them and help them understand what it is that was meant. Because it could be that a dream was shared, this was the idea, and we kind of run with it. And or maybe you misunderstood it. Here's what I meant. I was the one who wrote that dream, and let's go from there. Phyllis?
Did you say that there is an email address for the Dreamscape team?
There is. It's on the back of your report. Under the next steps, it says dreams@asburyfirst.org.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Yeah. Ruth?
Just for AUC people who are newer to the church and may not know, who is the church council and what is their role?
So the church council is currently the administrative programmatic body of the church. So in some organizations, you might think of the trustees as the sort of decision-making body. The trustees here makes decisions, but it's about the assets of the church, fiscal and capital assets. So the buildings and grounds and things like that. The church council is meant to be sort of the hub of the wheel and the place where information gets shared, where all of the programmatic ministries, the trustees, the staff parish relations committee, the finance committee, they all report to the church council. The church council makes those decisions. For instance, when we became a smoke-free campus, it was the church council who initiated that effort. When we became a reconciling congregation, it was the church council who initiated that effort. So the church council is the main programmatic entity of the church that makes decisions for that. Janda.
Hi. The volunteer coordinating part, is that within Asbury, so all the different categories and areas, is that what volunteer coordinating would be?
Well, I think the dream right now is purposefully ambiguous in that, but my thought in this is that it's someone who can help connect people to the things that could be done outside of worship within this church. So yes, it's those areas, yes, it's other places, but there are ways that we will have to continue to articulate that particular goal and that particular idea. If the dream team want to jump in, I'm just standing at the mic, so Ted, story of my life. Yeah, Ted.
So it seems that the goals and whatnot, the preparation that we have has been developed from sort of looking inward to ourselves. And I wonder if, not a few of your sermons have addressed some of the issues with the conference or with the more global matrix within which Asbury lives. I wonder if you're keeping an eye on that while you're looking to search with all the issues.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it was a question we had offered. Do you want to take it?
No, I'm saying one version.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Ted had said, if you can tell me if I've heard it correctly, but as I understand it, Ted had just said, well, look, this is a lot of inward focus on Asbury First, and that's absolutely true. What about the denominational challenges that we're facing? What about the world, the global, geopolitical challenges that are going on? How might we address those? I would say some of that, not all of it, some of the kind of addressing the systemic issues of poverty and other things within, certainly within the Rochester region, and even a little bit outside of the Rochester region, if we think about Project Chacosente and some other places like that, are done within the Outreach Task Force report in terms of the balancing mercy and justice, which came out as a part of that. So some of that is done there. And certainly as we think about, as a congregation, how we might speak into the global church, if we think about the worship that we offer and the kind of structures we create, absolutely it's the way that we might share those. It's certainly something that I'm committed personally to continue to be a part of. But this report, as those things came up in the goals, we started to say, we need to focus in on who we are. But you'll see in at least one of the goals, if we think about inclusion, it came up that we want to be thoughtful about how we might influence the denomination. So that is in there, in that piece at the very least. But it's a good question that we may need to continue to think about. Barb?
Our goals. Do we have a year, like is it 10 years, 20 years?
Yeah, so our thought in putting this together is that this is likely a 5-year plan. Maybe it will be shorter than that. In other words, the accessibility we're hoping to get done within 5 years. We purposely did not assign a number to it. We didn't. The previous plans have used a number and a date. The previous plan was Vision 2020. I'm not sure if that still exists. Well, I know it's not being implemented in the way that it was originally envisioned, though there was really good work done as a part of that plan. But this is the plan that we have for us, and so our thought in picturing it was that this was about a 5-year plan. There are some pieces of it that may take longer than that, and some we may be able to check off. And the exciting part was part of the exercise of dreaming meant there was some low-hanging fruit on that board. We could start it now, and so we've tried to do some of those things. But really, we want to do this well. And one of the things that I've come to really, really appreciate about Asbury First is that when it wants to do something, when we want to do something, we want to do it well and to make sure we're doing it in a way that's sustainable. Part of the repeat piece of the mission is to say we're not going to do it so that we can, be one and done, but that what we do is sustainable, so that we can be here another 200 years and beyond. Not for the sake of having a building, but for the sake of changing the world. Daryl?
September the 21st, Sunday the 6th, 25th, June 25th.
Yeah.
Is that a conference, a church-wide conference, or what is that vote for and on?
So there is one, it will be a church conference, pending approval from our district superintendent. But our thought is that it will be a church conference and that we will have a formal vote as a congregation to accept this report.
Stephen, I guess a month ago you had a talk about your concern for refugees?
Yes.
Does that fit into this somehow?
Absolutely. It's a part of the outreach piece that we were thinking through, and we're pulling together a group that's doing some work on thinking through how we might respond to the refugee crisis. And it's a good point because there are all sorts of areas of the church, areas of concern, places where clearly we have our heart in as a congregation that won't necessarily be named by name in this report purposefully so that we could be at one level up to think about how do we create the systems and structures so that we can respond to those kinds of things. How do we address the top level goals so that the other ones fit underneath it. So my personal idea is that that would go underneath the outreach report, the outreach area, because that's what it is. I mean, that's the area that where we come from. All right, friends, I want to say thank you so much for staying. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for listening. We would love your feedback. We'll be standing up here just after this. If you have ideas, if there are things you aren't comfortable sharing in front of the group, please let us know personally or send an email, and we will be hearing those and glad to respond to them to the best of our ability. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you.